Charlotte entered the world in silence, never having heard a single sound. But one miraculous day, everything changed. When her mother's voice finally reached her ears for the first time, Charlotte's reaction brought tears to everyone's eyes. In the bustling delivery room, nurses moved quickly, machines beeped in rhythm, and Dr. Thompson's steady voice guided Christy through her final push. "You're doing great, Christy. Just one more big push." Summoning all of her strength, Christy gave it everything she had. Moments later, the room was filled with a tiny cry. "It's a girl," Dr. Thompson announced, lifting the squirming newborn for them to see. Christy's husband, Mike, squeezed her hand, tears in his eyes. "She's perfect," he whispered. As the nurses cleaned and wrapped the baby, Christy couldn't take her eyes off her daughter. She was tiny, with the most adorable button nose. When the nurse placed the baby in her arms, Christy's heart swelled with love. "Hello, Charlotte," she cooed. "I'm your mommy. I've been waiting so long to meet you." But something felt off. While Charlotte's eyes darted around, taking in her new surroundings, she didn't react to her mother's voice at all. Christy brushed it off as newborn exhaustion. After all, Charlotte had just been through a lot. The next few days were a blur of diaper changes, feedings, and adjusting to life with a newborn. Christy and Mike were thrilled with their little girl, but the feeling that something wasn't right persisted. A few days after bringing Charlotte home, Christy's worries became clearer. She was gently rocking her baby in the nursery, singing a lullaby her own mother used to sing to her. The room was peaceful, lit only by the soft glow of a nightlight. As Christy sang, she noticed that Charlotte's eyes were wide open, staring at the ceiling. "Charlotte, sweetie," Christy said, a little louder than normal. No response, not even a blink. Her heart began to race. She stood up quickly. "Mike," Christy called out, her voice shaking. "I think something's wrong with Charlotte's hearing." Mike rushed over, and both parents, gripped by panic, spent the night huddled around their computer, searching desperately for answers. They combed through medical websites, forums, and hearing loss resources, hoping to understand Charlotte's lack of response to sound. Each search brought a mix of fear and hope as they tried to prepare for the doctor's visit. The next morning, they went to the hospital. Dr. Thompson listened carefully to their concerns and, after examining Charlotte, gently said, "I think we need to see a specialist. I'll refer you to a pediatric audiologist." The wait for the appointment felt endless, and despite trying to stay positive, Christy and Mike couldn't shake the fear of what might lie ahead. How would they communicate with Charlotte if she couldn't hear? Would she ever learn to talk? Finally, the big day arrived. Dr. Patel, the audiologist, ran a series of tests. She put tiny earphones in Charlotte's ears and watched how her brain responded to different sounds. After what felt like hours, Dr. Patel turned to Christy and Mike with a serious expression. "Mr. and Mrs. Keene," she said softly, "I'm afraid Charlotte has bilateral profound congenital hearing loss." Christy felt like someone had punched her in the stomach. "What does that mean?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Dr. Patel explained that Charlotte was born deaf in both ears. She couldn't hear anything, not even loud noises. Christy and Mike held each other tight, trying to process the news, but Dr. Patel wasn't done. "There are things we can do to help," she said. "Hearing aids might allow Charlotte to hear some sounds, and when she's older, we can consider cochlear implants." On the drive home, Christy and Mike were silent, deep in thought. As they pulled into the driveway, Mike looked at Christy with determination. "We've got this," he said firmly. "Charlotte is still our perfect little girl, and we'll do whatever it takes to give her the best life possible." Christy nodded, wiping away tears, and silently promised her daughter they would face this challenge with love and strength. The next few months were busy. Christy and Mike took sign language classes to communicate with Charlotte, and their supportive friends and family helped along the way. Charlotte thrived, smiling and giggling despite not being able to hear. Seeing her happy filled Christy and Mike's hearts with joy. When Charlotte was about 4 months old, they took her for a checkup. Dr. Patel suggested trying hearing aids, warning they might not fix everything, but could help her hear some sounds. On the big day, as Charlotte played with her toy, unaware of what was happening, Dr. Patel placed the tiny hearing aids behind her ears, almost invisible to her parents. "Are we ready?" Dr. Patel asked with a smile. Christy took a deep breath and nodded. Mike squeezed her hand. With a small click, Dr. Patel turned on the hearing aids. For a moment, nothing happened. Charlotte kept playing with her toy as if nothing had changed. Then, Christy leaned in close, her heart racing. She spoke softly. "Charlotte, can you hear me, sweetie? It's Mommy." Charlotte's eyes grew wide. She dropped her toy and went very still. Slowly, she turned her head toward the first voice she'd ever heard. "That's it, baby girl," Christy said, trying not to cry. "It's me. Mommy's right here." Charlotte looked confused at first, then something amazing happened. Her eyes locked onto her mother's face, and she looked utterly surprised. "I love you, Charlotte," Christy said, tears running down her face. "Mommy loves you so much." And then it happened. Charlotte's little lips started to quiver, her eyes filled with tears, and she let out a big cry. But this wasn't a sad cry or an "I'm hungry" cry. This was a cry full of feelings, as if Charlotte was overwhelmed by this new world of sound. Mike quickly grabbed his phone to record the special moment, knowing they would want to remember it forever. Charlotte reached out her tiny hands toward Christy's face, crying louder. Christy picked her up, hugged her close, and kissed her. "Shed, it's okay, baby," she said softly, crying too. "I know it's a lot, but Mommy's here. Mommy's always here." Dr. Patel watched with a big smile. "This is so beautiful," she said to Mike. "But remember, it's just the start of Charlotte's journey." Mike, too emotional to speak, hugged Christy and Charlotte tightly as Charlotte's cries turned into soft hiccups. Once she calmed down, Charlotte's wide eyes took in every new sound, from a nurse dropping a file to the hum of the air conditioning. Each sound was a little miracle. Leaving the office, Christy and Mike felt overjoyed but aware of the challenges ahead. In the weeks that followed, Charlotte explored the world of sound, getting scared by a barking dog, laughing at jingling toys, and looking confused by running water. Christy and Mike delighted in showing her new sounds, and one night, as Christy sang a lullaby, Charlotte's tiny smile before falling asleep filled her heart with love. But as Charlotte's hearing aids opened up new experiences, Christy and Mike also had to navigate a world that didn't always understand her needs. One day, at the grocery store, Charlotte's hearing aid battery died, and she started crying. An older woman muttered disapprovingly, leaving Christy frustrated. This incident reminded them to always be prepared, so they began carrying extra batteries and supplies everywhere they went. They also joined support groups for families of children with hearing loss, finding comfort and knowledge from others facing similar challenges. As Charlotte grew, the family faced a big decision: whether to pursue cochlear implants. These devices could potentially give Charlotte even more access to sound, but the surgery came with risks and was somewhat controversial in the deaf community. Christy and Mike spent months researching, talking to doctors, and discussing the pros and cons. They even took Charlotte to meet adults and children with cochlear implants to help them decide. In the end, they decided to go ahead with the implants. The surgery was scheduled after Charlotte's 4th birthday. The day of the surgery was nerve-wracking. Christy and Mike paced the hospital waiting room. When the doctor finally came out with a smile, they breathed a sigh of relief. The surgery had been a success. Recovery took time, but Charlotte adjusted quickly to her cochlear implants. Her eyes lit up with wonder, and she giggled when she heard her dad whistle for the first time. Christy and Mike enrolled her in intensive speech therapy, where Charlotte eagerly learned to interpret new sounds and form words. By the time she started kindergarten, she was confident and thriving. With her teacher Miss Rodriguez's help and an advanced system connected to her implants, Charlotte excelled in class, making friends and improving her language skills rapidly. Miss Rodriguez praised her progress, calling Charlotte an inspiration with a bright future ahead. What do you think of this story? Let us know in the comments section. Thank you.